And he happened to have the same therapist who also was working on him walking. He loves swimming. He wanted even to join the swim club. So I said, okay. So I called and they wouldn't allow him to try out because he had a disability. At the age of 9, Jason did take his first steps. He had to work very hard because with each step he had to, what I understand, tell his leg to move where we do it automatically. For Jason to walk, it was just not an automatic thing. He continued to walk for over a year with a prosthesis and a brace, but it was so much easier for him and less confining to use the wheelchair that he eventually stopped walking. But he had accomplished what he set out to do, and that was that he would walk someday. He couldn't have walked, he couldn't have gone swimming without the dedication of the physicians and physical therapists here at Mayo. They're always there to cheer Jason on. Their Mayo spirit lives on because of their belief in what Jason could do and accomplish with hard work. Although there were many problems raising Jason, such as finding daycare for a child with disability while you're working, getting into buildings, going to activities because there was inadequate transportation after school, and financial problems, life was good. Looking back, I remember so many wonderful people who cared for and helped us in so many ways. I learned that if one does not give up, things will work out. Maybe not as we planned, as my dad always said, but they do work out. Many of these people worked and still do work here at Mayo. Jason never demanded more than I could give. He always was sensitive to others. He was a happy child. He had an amazingly positive attitude and still does. And this is rubbed off on many people he has met through his life. He was always satisfied with life as it was, and he never gave up. When Jason started junior high, one of his dreams finally came true. As you can see, he played baseball. We were living in Rochester still, where they had an adaptive sports program. They had just started it. So the kids were able to play softball. They could play soccer, floor hockey, and that was through Park and Rec. There were some competitive adaptive floor hockey teams in Minneapolis, and they were supported by the school district. So a bunch of us mothers went to the Rochester School District and asked them to support the program so that we could have that in Rochester. Although, and they did, they decided to support that after about a year of working with them. But although they did not draw the crowds that most sports do, the kids were just happy to be playing. Most of these children never thought they would be able to play a sport, and that's something that's so important to kids at this age. So as parents, we were excited too that they could partake in a social activity that's so important to them. The adaptive floor hockey program is still today live and well, and is fulfilling many children's dreams. During this time, even though they had the sports in school, there was a lot of difficulty getting them to the school that they had to go to practice. We have Zips bus in Rochester, but they were often full. So every fall, I'd call and say, I want to schedule for the year to get the kids picked up for Zips, and the same message was, well, we don't have room. We can't pick the kids up because we have other commitments. I would keep calling and calling and calling, and eventually they gave in and they figured it out. So otherwise, it was very difficult to get your child in a program when you are a working parent. Other than trying, and I didn't really have family in town, so I relied on friends a lot during this time. Also, during this time when Jason was in high school, his dad drowned in Lake Pepin. So he never went without some tragedy happening in his life. But Jason eventually graduated from high school, and he got a job here at Mayo Clinic working as a telephone operator. Mayo spirit is evident in his supervisors and his colleagues. He has coached adaptive floor hockey. He has coached youth soccer, youth baseball, as well as girls fast pitch softball. He lived independently, not without some problems, but he was happy and, as usual, still a social person and never complained about what life had given him. Like most people, I take for granted many things in life. For example, I do not worry about how I will get through snow in a parking lot, or how I'll get into a building without access or a ramp. I do not worry about falling down and not being able to get up by myself. I do not worry about getting stuck on a railroad track in a wheelchair. I do not have trouble picking up something I've dropped on the floor or getting food off a shelf at the grocery store. I do not have trouble covering my head or zipping up my coat when it's cold. I can eat an ice cream cone without needing help from someone. I can wash clothes without wondering how I'm going to get them out of a top-loading washing machine. I can get mosquitoes away from my face before they bite me. These are just a few things that Jason and many other persons with disabilities face every day of their life. Considering these things, I realize that many of the situations I have complained about are really quite trivial. I learned that if Jason and I were to make it in this world, I would have to start speaking out. I learned what true compassion was. I learned that life is unpredictable and that it may not always work out as planned. I learned that there are great joys in the smallest things and that material possessions are not the most important things to be gained in life. I became a much stronger person and no longer expected life to take care of me. I learned that I must enjoy my life and every day of that life because one never knows what tomorrow will bring. We can only hope, believe, and have faith that it will be good. Now when I am feeling down, all I need to do is think of Jason and remember when he said, "Don't worry, Mommy, everything will work out." From all I have learned and all that Jason has taught me, I believe the most important is that great bond between a parent and a child, unconditional love. On June 23rd, Jason and Stacy were married. When Jason decided to get married, he called my mom up, whose actually birthday it is today, and said, "Grandma Kitty, I am getting married. I never thought I would find someone." And that story didn't end there. On June 10th, 2005, Harmon Scott Zylstra was born. And life has never been better for Jason. Mayo Spirit touched Jason in so many ways in his journey through life and still does. Jason, Stacy, and Harmon own their own home, and Jason is still working at Mayo Clinic in telecommunications. Harmon is busy playing sports, so Jason is still doing what he loves, and that's watching and coaching sports. Jason is living the dream. And Jason, I see you're back there. He's in the back. I'm going to add one more thing. I'm wearing a red dress. Many years ago, when the song Lady in Red came out, it was one of my favorite songs. And I would crank it up in the radio. And Jason said one day, he said, "Mommy, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a red dress." But he did not buy me a red dress. But I have a red dress. So now Dr. Peterson is going to come and share part of his journey with us in our lives.
Wow, Valerie, that was a powerful and thought-provoking presentation. There's very little I can add to the story, but I will try by approaching it in a different manner. In thinking about this story, I could not help but reflect on the fact that we are truly privileged to live in a country where one of our core principles is all men are created equal. Or in today's world, to be politically correct, all people or all persons are created equal. Even in these politically divisive times, most people agree that we are indeed all created equal. This is a social, political, and legal principle that guides all of us every day. Jason, Stacy, and Harmon live by and benefit from this principle. However, having practiced pediatric orthopedic surgery my entire career, I can state unequivocally that in an anatomical sense, no two people are created equal. In my first year on staff in 1967, I was confronted with a set of identical twin boys. They had the same genetic makeup. The mother was unable to tell them apart until age 5, when one became an inch taller than the other. The taller had a normal spine, and the shorter had a lumbar hemivertebra with spine curvature, which was treated by spine fusion. The surgery was successful. The twin was able to compete evenly with his brother, but at maturity, he was 2 inches shorter than his so-called identical twin brother. As time went on, I was confronted with, as anticipated, children with club feet, hip dislocation, cerebral palsy, scoliosis, spina bifida, meningomyelocele, etc., no two of which were ever exactly the same. So it was easy for me to conclude, at least in the anatomic sense, that no two people are created equal. This brings us to Jason, who was born with arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, a condition that can be described as uneven tightness of muscles causing muscle dysfunction, limb contractures, and joint deformities. It essentially precludes independent ambulation. There is no known cause, it is not hereditary, and there are no known cases in Jason's family or ancestors. With the limited prenatal imaging possibilities at the time of Jason's birth, it was completely unexpected. Meaningful ambulation is not possible with patients with this malady, and these patients typically use wheelchairs. Surgery is fraught with dangers, as Valerie has described so well. Jason's growing years and the challenges he and the family encountered were also very well described by Valerie, who at a very young age was confronted with this set of difficult circumstances. Jason went on, against all odds, to become educated, employed at Mayo as a telephone operator, and married Stacy, who has cerebral palsy and is also physically challenged and uses mobility devices. They've become independent, owning their own home, and Jason even drives a car. They have a son, Harmon, who is physically normal. What a success story. But this could only happen with the guidance and sure will of Valerie, who was able to rise to the occasion of dealing with problems for which there is no formal education or training. This brings me back to support my opening premise that no two people are created equal. But our core belief that all people are created equal has helped position Jason and Stacy to be successful and live lives similar to people without physical disabilities. And they succeeded. This story could only be accomplished by the wisdom, love, and extraordinary effort by Valerie, Jason, and Stacy. Thank you.
So normally at our general membership meetings, we open the floor up for questions. Before we do that, I want to just do something a little different today because our Disability Merge partnered with Bioethics this past Sunday for the screening of Wonder. And I think about that movie. How many of you seen it? And at the end of that movie, there was a standing ovation for the courage for the young boy in that movie. And I'd really like to open up the floor here to help give Val a standing ovation for her courage in life. Everybody deserves it once in their life. I hope you felt that. That was so true, Val. Thank you, audience. And Jason. Jason, I know you're in the back there too, and you are living the dream. Thank you so much.
Around the pillar.
And that made me think of another point. Earlier in February, we talked a lot at Mayo Clinic about universal design and making our facilities more accessible. And when I wanted to do that standing ovation, I would have loved for Jason to come on down if our facility was a little bit more accessible. So as we're walking through our facilities, always thinking about opportunities to improve our design would make things more inclusive for everyone. So we do have 10 minutes left. Are there questions that we can answer for anyone, for Val or Dr. Peterson? Anyone have a question that they'd like to? Or Jason?
I just want to comment.
Yes.
I want to thank both of you for sharing your story and allowing it to be shared.
Agreed. Any other questions?
I'll comment.
Comment.
I'm Jason's coworker. I love Jason.
Yes.
I look forward to working with Jason when I see him on the schedule. And he inspires me. And he does make you realize when something is bad in your life. We've had heart-to-heart talks before, and he's such an inspiration. I love you, Jason.
Well, Val Holling, thank you again for presenting and the courage to share that story. Oh, we have one more question.
For those viewing online, remember the email inbox is mergrst. That's MERG disability @mayo.edu. The question submitted online says, Val, please comment on the decision to move Jason from the mainstream school system to the Lakeville school. What would have been different, or perhaps Jason wants to comment?
At the time, it was what Jason wanted. I think it just felt, well, Jason, will you answer this? I'm only speaking for you. All I know is he really, really wanted to go, and I wanted to make that happen.
Do you want to share your thoughts on
Well, a lot of pressure on me now, huh? I tell you, I just came to watch a show. But just 1 second here. I had to get my thoughts in order here.
Yes. So when you went to Rochester Public Schools as a child, and then you made the decision to move into a different school, would you have done things differently? Or how could Rochester Public Schools, or how could Rochester Public Schools done a better job of mainstreaming?
Well, I really don't know how to answer that question, but it's just that you know you get to the point where when you're growing up with a disability and growing up in the era that I grew up in, you learn to accept it at a young age and accept who you are, and really have to make a decision which way you're going to go with it, with having a disability. And I think that with the guidance of my mother and all the supporting cast that surrounded us, that I had no other choice but to go all in and make my disability just who I am really as a person, go full speed and accept with life the way it is, and hopefully I come out on the good side of it in the end. And I would have to say, with all that life is pretty good, you know, and I made the decision at a young age where I'm going to be successful at whatever I do, and so far I think I've done a pretty good job, and have to really thank all the people, whether it comes down to the physicians that took care of me at Mayo. They encouraged me in that all the work they did on me and helped guide me through, that they did a good job, and they were supportive in whatever decisions I made with my health. To my of course my mom had a major role with that, and she had to make a lot of tough decisions with the way she was going to approach me with this, but she encouraged and pushed me to go out to be the best I can be, and really allowed me to explore and make right decisions, and a heck of a lot of bad decisions to be able to learn my way through life. And she was always there no matter how bad those decisions were, and she was also right in the front row with all the good decisions I made also. So, and with all the educators, school system, when I was coming through the school system, they were just really mainstreaming individuals with disabilities into the everyday classroom, and I really have so much to say positive things with the Rochester schools system, with the way they allowed me to be who I am as a person and not who I was with a disability. And so that really helped push me along too, that they encouraged me, and whether it was, you know, playing adaptive athletics to keeping the scorebook for the high school baseball team. I remember one instance when I was on the high school baseball team, all the coaches on the away trips weren't accessible for wheelchairs. So we had one of our biggest guy on our team where we had to figure out how they're going to get me on the bus. So our biggest guy on the team bent down, threw me over his shoulder and said, "Let's go, buddy." So there we go. And that was the way all my friends were. We found ways to get through things, and we found ways to make things easier. And if they weren't easier, well, we made them easier. So, but and I have to also thank the Mayo Clinic for allowing me to be able to work here as long as they have. I told somebody when I got hired here at Mayo, I said I won't last here 6 months, and this September I'll be here 19 years. You know, so. So I probably got off track with the initial question.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
I want to thank everybody for coming, and it was a good time.
Thank you for letting us put you on the spot. And Val, if you give him a mic, he just goes.
Yeah,
That's
I
all we
know.
needed to do. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming to the membership meeting today. I wish you a wonderful Wednesday afternoon and look forward to seeing you again in October.